Hello and welcome to another edition of the Walpole Business Spotlight, brought to you through the efforts of the Walpole Chamber of Commerce and Walpole Community Television. My name's Harry Brusades. I'm the president of the Chamber and host of the show. As you know, the show is brought to you to give you more information regarding local businesses or sales professionals or business owners within Walpole and surrounding communities, so our community can get to know, like, and trust them and find out more about their products and services so they can make good, informed, and knowledgeable buying decisions. Today, my guest is Dan Busler.
Harry.
Hello, very nice to see you. From Busler Photography, Dan Busler Photography, and that's located in Walpole.
At 55 West Street, right in the center of town.
Excellent. And Dan is also a member of the Chamber of Commerce and has been for a couple years now. I hope that's working out for you.
Oh, very well, thank you.
Awesome. So if I could, I'd like to read some of the starting bio for you. So Dan Busler Photography, average images are not acceptable, which I found is pretty cool. Dan Busler Photography is a best of the not 2012-13 portrait performance and event photographer based in Boston, Mass, with a focus on high school seniors, businesses, and theatrical headshots, theatrical productions, and events, and honored to be named Fine Arts Advocate of the Year of 2013.
Correct.
So that sounds pretty good.
Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about that award.
Actually, the award was through the Norwood school systems. My daughter originally went through the school, graduated in 2005, and years before that she was in all the theatrical productions. That's really how I started photographing their events. And since 2002 I've been photographing their events, and that year they awarded me that. Each year someone else gets the award, and so that year I was lucky enough to get the award. Excellent.
So before we go into more of the business and the art of photography, let's hear more about you. So it says here you were born in York, Pennsylvania.
That's correct.
Now, is that a very historic town? I remember learning about York in the history books.
It depends if you're from York or not, if it's a historical town.
Okay.
We say we're the first capital of the United States because the Articles of Confederation were signed there. But of course, Philadelphia takes issue with that. They feel they're the first capital of the United States, and I would guess there are probably 10 other towns in the U.S. that feel that way. But it's an old town. It's a very much like New England. That part of Pennsylvania is historical. The church I went to was built in 1733. Wow. So it's there are a lot of older homes there and historical landmarks.
So you grew up there, went to college at York College of Pennsylvania, and then you went on to study at Berklee College of Music?
That's right. I went for 2 years to York College of Pennsylvania, got my associate's degree. And back in Pennsylvania, I was a musician. That's what I was. That's what I focused on. And so I had the opportunity to move to Boston and went through the whole program at Berklee and graduated and then went on to be a professional musician. And that's what I did for a number of years. And I would have to say that you know, at some point the traveling musician kind of got old, and I had always been a photographer. So I focused on photography more than the music career.
Too many groupies?
Yes.
Okay.
For this show, yes.
So you originally moved to Norwood, is that correct?
Well, I moved to Boston first, and then I moved to Norwood.
Okay.
Got married and had 2 children.
Okay.
And then I moved to Walpole.
Oh, great.
So now I'm here.
Very good. So let's talk about photography. Now, my first thought or question to you would be that everybody thinks they're a photographer now, correct? With the iPhones and the Samsung, everybody's got a camera.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
So let's distinguish the difference between the two. Please.
Well, the number one thing that makes a photographer is their vision. what they see through the lens. And I always said that my mother was one of the best photographers I knew, and she took snapshots. Everything she did was family snapshots, and we all have that. We all have that person in the family that is always saying, oh, stand there, let me take your picture. Well, that hasn't changed. The iPhone still produces wonderful photographs, and there are actually photographers out there that that are making a business of iPhone photography, sort of street photography, and they have a great eye. There are also people that still have the whole fun of just picking the camera up, the iPhone today, and just taking pictures at the beach, people jumping in the air, you know, birds flying, seagulls on this, you know, whatever. And the eye still is what makes a person a photographer, not the camera. So to say that someone can't be a good photographer without an expensive camera is not true. The next step after the eye is the technical side of it, becoming a craftsperson, being able to use the equipment. And there's a difference between what we call natural light photography and flash photography or strobe photography, I call it studio photography. And I think the biggest difference is natural photography is very popular. There are many, many professional photographers that don't have any lights, no studio. They don't know how to use lights, and they'll tell you that, the flash strobe lights. And they take beautiful pictures. There are also the photographers, of course, that can do both. They can do the studio photography and they can do the natural light photography. Once again, we're still learning the technology. You have to be a good technologist of any camera to take either natural light or studio photography. So when you blend those two things together, you have the eye to take a good picture, and you have the technical ability. The last thing is being a business person. One of the most important lessons I ever learned was, if you're an artist and you're trying to run a photography art, you're going to fail. But if you're a business person, you treat your customers well, you price your products correctly, you pay your taxes, you do all the business side of it. Now you have three things. Now you have the eye, the technology, and the business acumen. And you actually could call yourself a professional photographer at that point, because you'll have some longevity.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like the same cliche that I hear with some people in business that are okay business-wise, but they never get to that next level of success. And that's because they work too much in their business versus on their business. And if you're like a photographer that's more of the artiste, you're spending so much time on one photo, or the perfect shading or whatever, versus having to have some type of revenue stream as well, which comes with the business side.
That's very important.
Right, okay.
Very important.
So I would assume that a lot of photographers like to pick niches. One may say, I only do weddings and that's it. I hear that a lot of photographers that I've met along the way I don't do weddings. And for whatever reason, they choose to do that. So what I've seen through your reference material is that you pretty much do it all. Is there any, like, say, top 3 or 5 that you'd like to really discuss a little bit more?
Sure. When you say you specialize in something, if you're a wedding photographer only, you're probably not just a wedding photographer only, because brides and grooms have babies, and they have children, and they grow and they become senior high school students. Well, so a wedding photographer that says they specialize, they also will do other types of photography, but it's not their specialty. In my case, I started with portrait photography, and that led me to, oddly enough, to do weddings. And so even though I don't say I'm a wedding photographer, I probably do 6 or 8 weddings a year. And I have a particular type of bride and groom that I like to photograph. Right or wrong, I have a very artsy side. There are other photographers that are very, everything is joyful. And I think there's something more in people than just the joy. I think there's a soul. And so after I'm done photographing for high school seniors, as most of the viewers will know if they've seen my work, or they've come to my studio, I don't have a lot of people smiling in my studio on the walls, because I feel that this photography is an art, and that there's something to it. There's something to capture here more than just what you might get with a big smile. Mm. So of course we need to get those photographs, because as one mother once said to me, don't bother taking serious pictures, I won't buy them. Which I thought was kind of funny, and we still took them, and the senior loved the pictures. But so portraits are really my focus. And from that business, two other things came. I already said that I do a lot of theatrical photography. So my portrait work had led me to do work for the Boston Opera Collaborative, Masterworks Chorale, Longy School. A lot of theatrical photography is low light photography, and there can't be flash. So I'm doing low light photography, very slow shutter speeds sometimes. So that's a specialty, oddly enough. And these are all developing on their own. Portrait photography, theatrical photography. And the last is events. Events are weddings to me. I should say weddings are events to me. To a wedding photographer, they would say that's not true. But if you consider an event, it could be a trade show, or it could be a family gathering, or it could be a wedding. To me, an event is capturing the moments that are happening. And in there are also portraits. They're candids of people, but I'm also posing people. So these three things, I keep thinking, well, I should specialize on one, but they're all so intertwined that I'm able to follow all three paths. And every time I shoot a portrait, I get something from my event photography or from my my theatrical photography, the way I can shoot in a senior high portrait with low light. So I get a lot of an artsy side to my photography.
So you brought up some really nice topics there. I think one is, would it behoove you to be like a relationship photographer? Almost somebody that, you know, starts with the high school kids, they, you know, a high school portrait as a senior, off to college, then they get married, and then as they build this trust with you and love your work, then it's their first child or something, and then it's, you know, more a family event, and you just kind of follow that family almost through their whole lives potentially.
I couldn't have fed you a better line, Harry.
Yeah,
it's so true.
That's great.
Exactly. We call them tweens. A tween is someone in 6th or 7th grade, and that's normally where I pick up the portrait. Whether I did the senior high student and now I'm doing the younger sibling, but of course I would have to say that at least one wedding a year is a senior that I photographed, senior high, most of the time girl that I photographed, and they get married, and then when they have children I photograph their children, even though, as I said, I don't focus on newborns and the young children. Oddly enough, newborn photography is an extremely specific, very specific specialty. Mm-hmm. You keep the room at 80 degrees. You have heating blankets, you have soft music, you have candles, and it's just not something that, if you don't specialize on something, I just wouldn't do that good a job for them.
So another thing that came to mind when you were talking about the smiling photos, I remember hearing somewhere or reading somewhere that everybody's life looks so tremendous when they go back and look at their scrapbooks, because there are always happy moments that you're taking photos of. And does it make sense to at least get the middle of that? I mean, of course you don't want to be taking pictures of sad moments in life, but real moments in life. Does it make sense to have those photos too?
Of course, every session I do, unless it's a formal portrait session, is going to be joyful pictures, happy pictures. I have a plan when I'm shooting. The senior portrait sessions are normally the longest sessions I do. They're at least an hour, sometimes 2 hours, and they go into 3 hours sometimes. Because there's no reason to rush something like this. This is one of the biggest milestones in a person's life, graduating from high school. And so we go all around. I've been to the beach, I've been to New York, I've been to New Hampshire. There's no place that I won't go for Providence, Rhode Island for senior portrait sessions. So it's more personal. So yes, we get pictures of them walking and smiling and laughing, and it's, but you see, that's all a part of who they are. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you that even though the snapshots that we all take, they're never going to be as inclusive. Then we're not going to include all of those emotions, because oddly enough, any professional photographer also knows how to show you the whole breadth of all of your emotions that you're going to have. And I've never had any parent ever say that, boy, I get all those emotions from them too. Because no one wants to pose for your mom. You don't. You just don't want to give them the same pose.
So that kind of leads perfectly into one of my next questions, which is, how do you go about choosing the right photographer? And before you answer, it sounds to me like we're moving towards, it is somewhat relationship driven.
Well, yes, and you don't know the photographer other than by their work. So of course the first thing that I would suggest someone does is look at the photographer's website. Give them a call. Listen how they talk. How do they talk to you? Ask them, what's the session going to be like? What do you do? Where do you go? Where do you photograph? I mean, asking them what kind of camera they have, and I get that question, is no question at all, because it really doesn't tell you if the person has the eye, the technical ability, and the business ability. Mm-hmm. So just look at their work, and then you need to talk to them. And I can tell you that I meet with every client 3 times. I have what's called a pre-session consultation, 15 minutes. It always goes for half an hour. I have them come to the studio, look at the pictures on the wall. We talk about where I'm going to photograph, how I photograph. They get to meet me. I suggest that you do that. You meet the photographer. You're spending a lot of money. These days, you're spending a lot of money with a photographer unless you're going to a department store to have the pictures taken, and you'll be there for 15 minutes and you'll get that experience. And then finally, after we have this session, we spend an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours together. Then we get back together and we look at the pictures together projected on the wall. Now, you don't have to do that, but one of the reasons we do that is because I want the people to be able to see them the size they're going to be on the wall. So how do you pick a photographer? You meet them.
Okay. So we've got some photos and pictures and some products here. Maybe you could just pinpoint a couple of these, and let's talk a little bit about why you've made these some of your favorites.
Well, one of the things I didn't mention, of course, was still life. And if you look at my website, I also do still life. I love photographing the details. And the wedding cake over here is something, as I was kind of surprised. I was doing a wedding. I was walking through it was at a house, and I was walking through the kitchen, and this cake was just sitting there, and I just sort of turned and took a picture of it and kept walking and went on to what I was going to do. I got home, and as I told you before we started, every picture I took is my favorite picture I ever took. And this was one of those. As you can see, I mean, it's sort of perfectly, we call it staged or styled by the people that were setting up the wedding. So I love shooting still life. This photograph is very interesting. This was shot probably 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago. This was a high school student. I did his senior session. This was his college graduation photograph. And he came because he wanted a very serious picture. This was his professional headshot. This was the picture that was going to be in the lobby when he was conducting one of the symphonies that he was honored enough to conduct. So he needed something very serious so that it could go out and show the confidence and power that he was going to have over that orchestra. So this is also, of course, one of my very favorite photographs. If we can switch over to this one of the baseball player, this is actually one of the Walpole baseball players that graduated, I believe, just this last year. This type of a photograph is something I call an artistic montage, where I take a number of the pictures from the session and I sort of blend them into something. It's not a collage like we used to see, where we would see just matted pictures. This is a lot more blended, and I feel that it's a lot more powerful to show it this way. We want all of the photographs that we, as professional photographers, when you purchase a photograph from us, we want it to be timeless. We want it to be something that you'll pass down for generations.
Mm-hmm.
His grandchildren will value that picture.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
I was also going to say that I don't know if they can get the photograph, but the family photograph in front of us, this is actually an order that I'm delivering, so the people haven't even seen this yet. The viewers are getting to see it before the family gets to see it. But I did want to show some of the ways that we can present other than just prints. One thing, of course, is small prints. I mean, you just 8x10s and 5x7s. We just have little prints, and everybody knows what these are.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing that's kind of cool sometimes, this is actually a wooden box. And it opens, and the mother, big surprise, this is going to be a gift I'm giving the mother.
Okay.
She doesn't know it, but she'll see it before this airs. So a wooden box. The other thing are albums. At the end of the design consultation, which is the third time we meet, we look through all the photographs of the senior, and we normally end up with 15 or 20 photographs at the end that the senior really loved. The parents aren't going to buy that many because they don't have that much room on their wall. So what we end up doing is we end up building a little album which has photographs from the session. This is a very inexpensive way to get a lot of photographs from the session into an inexpensive album that the family can keep for generations.
Excellent. It's beautiful stuff.
Thank you.
So I like to just kind of interject a story that happened in my life that I thought was very important to the viewers when it comes to photography. And I think a lot of people, when they are having events, may or may not go down their list, and then at the end it can either be, do we hire a caterer or do we get our own food, you know, if it was at a house type of thing. Or maybe if we're having an event up at Raphael's and it was a family event, do we really need a photographer? You know, maybe we can just have somebody, 2 or 3 people designated to do the iPhone thing. And I was in a business networking group in the past that had a photographer before I met you. And he would always get up and talk about these type of scenarios. And he would show us some of the photos. And I think at the first part of it was to really put some of the people running the event more at ease, because they didn't have another thing to do. And they were able to enjoy themselves.
Right.
And I got a little bit more story behind it. And anyway, so long story short, my mother and father were celebrating their 50th anniversary. And we were having it up at Raphael's, and we were back and forth on the photographer for the event. And I really stressed that we should have that. And it was one of the biggest hits, because as an event photographer, not only are you good with a camera, you need to be good with the crowd and the people. And they really enjoyed it immensely, and we had a great finished product. And you know, unfortunately life happens, and my father passed away the following year. And it was just something that we were so glad to go back to, and we made a video with all the pictures and a memorial type of thing. And I can't tell you, God, if it cost a few $100s, it was priceless to get that done. And the photos of all the people, that again, they were professionally done, and compared to if you were snapping them with a camera, it was huge. So if I could ever stress or promote what Dan does, and for what you do for families, and the emotions that go with it, and the long-lasting history that goes with it, again, I think, you know, reading through some of your descriptions, you know, it's a spotlight in time, basically, and you can never get that back if you miss it, right?
No, you can't get it back. And of course, there can be someone at the. There were photographs of your father taken that night, not by the professional
Sure.
photographer. But what I found to be true is that a professional photographer will light that image correctly. It'll be clear. It'll be, I call it frame-worthy. I'm not discounting, as I tried to do a number of times during this interview, I'm not trying to discount snapshots. But I do want to promote the fact that if you do hire a professional photographer, that not only will everyone be able to enjoy the party, but also that photographer is going to look for all the quiet moments, all the people holding hands, all the arms around each other, the tears and the laughter. This is our job. We're not a part of the family, so we don't hold back on taking the photograph that is important to you. And another truth be told, you can't take a photograph that wasn't taken. You can't take it after the fact. It's gone.
Right. Sure. So we still got some time left, so I wanted to ask two more follow-up questions. I guess before, to make sure we get it in, how do clients or prospective people contact you?
Well, first of all, if they go to my website, which is danbuslerphotography.com, all of my contact information is there. That'll make it easy. They can call me as well at 781-352-4863. And that's my direct line.
Great. And you can also go to the business directory at walpolechamber.org, go to photography, and you'll be there as well.
I wish you had prompted me. I would have started with that.
That's okay. No, that's fine. And we need to do more promotion on that end. So I guess let's finish up with, quickly, do you have a hobby?
I don't have time for a hobby.
Okay. Well, that goes to the next question. I would assume some photography is work to you and some is passion. So what is your favorite when it comes to photography? You know, Ansel Adams loved his trees and his mountains. What's your favorite?
We call it street photography. It is my favorite thing to do. Street photography is truly candid photography. It's not intrusive. It could be a child sitting on a bench reading a book, or it could be a parent, holding a child at the beach. It's things that you find, or it could be just someone smoking a cigarette on the street corner. Some of the most iconic pictures I've ever taken have been just that sort of thing. Maybe at a town parade. I have taken so many that the town parades are just a wonderful place to take photographs. Any event where the town has come together are wonderful times to take photographs.
And that's a great prelude to, upcoming this year. Walpole Chamber is always greatly involved and behind the Christmas parade that happens in right before Thanksgiving or right after Thanksgiving, and the the Christmas tree lighting as well. So that was great.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Thanks for coming in. Dan's a well-respected photographer, and please reach out to him or check out his website to find out more information on how to contact him. Again, I thank you for viewing the show today. Again, it's all about bringing people into the spotlight so we get to know, like, and trust them so you can make great buying decisions. I thank you for your time. Be well, be safe. Have a nice day.